Actually, I have two questions for you, Andrew.
Sure.
Just to start off the questioning part of it, this came up yesterday. Someone wanted to know where the name Galactic Historian came from. Whose idea was that?
That's a really good question. That stems back to a philosophical organization that stemmed from the Arcturian and Andromedan. I'm going to call them legions, but it's not a military concept. And what these legions did was go out and search for history that was forgotten, and they would make records of it. And they would go to different worlds and learn their Akashic records and share it with the very founding Arcturian collectives. This was at the very youngest age of the Arcturian homeworlds, when their full concept of the collective hadn't been fully explored. And there were a series of other races that were insectoid that had been collecting records from other worlds and suspending them in it's a thing that they'd excrete out of their mouth, and this excretion would turn into a crystal, and that excretion had the entire expression of what it is that they learned. And they shared this psychic technology with the Arcturians, who bred it into their Weaver crystals, so that they could go to a world and literally get a copy of the Akashic record of that world. But it was only up until that moment in which they came there, so there were regular exploration things to the various parts of the galaxy to update the galactic history. Well, there was a big scenario where the Arcturian collective was infiltrated by a group that was trying to copy and corrupt this information, and a significant portion of it was corrupted. This is what led to the Arcturians separating collectives into collectives into collectives, so if one is corrupted, the whole isn't. And the Galactic Historian whole, and I'm going to say concept, it isn't a concept, the first person manifested out of that information that was being recreated. Think of it like Amelia Benz describes herself as a source stream that comes for a specific first purpose with no past lives or future lives. The first Galactic Historian would have been about 89 million years ago, and that first person was an androgynous entity, no sex, and lived for many millions of years, and would travel with the species and confirm the information that was being taken from copied from a planet as being authentic. When that being passed on, he passed a lineage on to a whole race. So that race would choose one or two people every 1,000 generations to be a candidate to be Galactic Historian. When I migrated from another universe here, I became part of that race and became part of that candidacy process. The second and third Galactic Historians who came in around 31 million years ago, that's when the real pickup of the Time Wars began and the time pollution. And that's where the whole idea of the Galactic Historians thing was no more secrets. Because as long as there are secrets, the system of domination and control and the system of dominion fighting the domination and control would be able to limit people's free will. So that's how it stemmed from. And then there was a series of two others after that. And as I said, the last one did not survive very well. He was erased from history, had a horrible death. You know, it was to make a point, if another Galactic Historian comes forward, that they were going to make it as hard as possible for him. And the thing is, when I chose, there were four others ahead of me in this world right now. When I chose, it was because I was already in Paradox Remedy reality, and there's nothing they could do to eliminate me without eliminating much of their own plans, because I'm soul family to everyone. I purposely did that part of the candidacy process. So this entire drama, it's like me watching a TV series for the last 10 years. You just know the outcome. You can just understand the plays and the moves. And that gave me a deep understanding of the data that I'm recovering, so that we understand the big picture of what's going on.
So the role you're playing is specialized beyond imagination as far as this galaxy, this universe is concerned.
Correct. It's specifically for this time, this place. I'd say frequently I'm linked to the Akashic records of 20,000 other worlds. That's the 20,000 other worlds that have invested time travelers, timeline genocide, technology, or the need of DNA for their species to survive. Wherever a human has been taken or enslaved or taken with goodwill intentions, it's recorded on the Akashic records of other worlds, which creates a time micro paradox on that Akashic world, because that being doesn't truly exist, even though it does exist. That's how the timeline pollution has changed, and that's the purpose of the Galactic Historian, is to go into the deepest depths of this scenario and this timeline to explain to all the races that are working out there. For every person you've taken off this planet, you have spread the time pollution beyond the walls of this planet, of this solar system.
Do races like the Lemurians that we currently have been discussing in relation to their activities on the timeline, are they aware of you and your role in history as well as you now?
They are aware of who I am, and there's been a significant amount of conversations, both positive, negative, and neutral. There is a political organization that believes I am a paradox, and that they are the remedy, and that my existence proves their point. Okay? Mm-hmm. And then there's another group who is completely opposite of it, who says that my existence as a galactic historian in the paradox remedy proves my point. Because there's two sides. One that says Lemurians have the sovereign free will right to return to their pristine timeline before genocide occurred. And the other one is they've lost, and everything that they've done since then has made it worse, and they are now affecting the sovereign free will of not only this species here on Earth, but tens of thousands of other worlds are now being drastically affected by their actions.
Which is dominating their view at the moment?
That's the thing. There's a third point of view, and that third point of view is to have our world and their world come into a union, and that union allows us, the people that are trapped in Lemurian time, to jump forward in time to our paradox reality, and those in our paradox reality who believe they're still Lemurians to go back to Lemurian time and allow the separation of density between the two paradoxes resolve itself. And that should create unity consciousness so that the Lemurians can still exist, and then we can still have our graduation. But that leaves who's going to be the mighty I am self at the resolution of unity consciousness. So it's a third, and when you have 33, 33, 33, there's that 1% that switches it over, and that 1% is the people that are still locked outside of time. That's that 108 billion people that are locked outside. They still get their impressive vote also.
Are they actually still 108 billion? Because they've been there a long time. What's become of them?
The thing is, it's really hard to describe. Once they're locked out of time, they figured ways to get back into reality by the spirit rules and the universal laws, where they can incarnate back into the universe and find a way back to Earth through the incarnation process, and having to leapfrog from world to world to world.
Okay, but they specifically want to come back here.
Correct. They want to come back, and it is their sovereign right to. So there's a whole lot of compassion needed here. The political organizations in Lemurians, they don't have the compassion. They're 6th and 7th dimensional entities, and many of them look at us as the broken down mutts that have lost their true essence. But that's also wrong in their expression too, because they ultimately know. Because I've had that conversation with many of them. That's the words of domination and control when you're using that, and you're speaking out of anger and fear. And my representation here, Nikki's representation here, the fact that this world, all 66 planets are quarantined, this entire solar system is quarantined. In fact, the quarantine extends thousands of light years beyond our solar system, so there's layers upon layers that if anything was going to get here, it would be fortress after fortress after fortress after fortress that they'd have to individually invade and remove all of the layers of protection that lead you deep into the center. So the Lemurians realize that there are thousands of species that are quarantining this planet to preventing this, and the political organizations just look at that and go, for that to occur, there had to have been something so massive that they don't understand. that, for these races to come together that would never come together before.
Huge story. Huge.
Because our race doesn't know how to create courts of equity, spiritual courts of equity.
And it's been
because it's taken away by when our oral traditions were taken away.
And the indigenous tribes were murdered intentionally and replaced with
All the pipe holders too.
and the courts that we presently have.
Because the pipe was the presence of the court. So when they shared a pipe in court and in council, that pipe was can be psychometry, can be used to prove that there was a court then, court with earth. And that would be why the pipe holders were taken. And all the warriors, all the peace makers, all of them.
Yeah.
We've had thousands of societies and civilizations that all they did was watch those stars. And the stars that they watched aren't the same stars we watch today.
Right.
Because reality is perceived through your culture. We are a media-driven culture now. They own our oral traditions.
Right.
Our oral historians were taken away. We still have some now that are out there trying to promote it, but the people that are born into the TV generation, the media generation, that's their oral history.
Right.
And it's not your mother and father as much anymore.
Right.
That's where it has to change. People like me coming out and doing the oral recording of the Akashic record.
Right.
Not in a trance. You can communicate and talk to me. I'm a real person.
Pyramid fortification was the last one.
The last of the sentients of Atlantis that ultimately knew there was a corruptive force in their incarnation pattern that they could never prevent. That no matter what they did, the volume that was there, no matter what time wars they did, there's no chance for them to go back to the beginning and change it. So the only other choice was to go to the end.
Right, and the end is now.
2011 to 2014. This is where all of the 2,300 species that have been doing time wars is manifesting everything that they're doing because they realized they couldn't go back to the beginning and change it, so they had to invest into the future or layers into the future. So all of their propaganda, technology, spirituality stuff all popped up just before the awakening, just before Earth pops out of the densest part and into the lighter part with the rest of the solar system.
Even though he's extremely informationally based, it all comes down to the same core that I believe in, that this is a creation from the inside out. We're not at the mercy of anything outside of this sphere of Earth, that we're creating our own time here, that we're in our own zone here, and we basically got to clean up, and we agreed on that point. And the point that he stated that the dark, if you want to call them that have X amount of control, they're not going to relinquish it. Period. End of discussion. You can't light them out of it. You can't just sit there and send love and wave your pom-poms. You just gotta take action, actually.
Exactly. Oh, it'll be wonderful. There's something I say. The cheerleaders don't win the football game. The players.
Yeah. You've got that. Re-establishment of free will seems to be the theme underlying Andrew's work and Peter and Michael's work, and different methodologies, but the actual project is the same.